everyone for today's session. I'm Natalie. I'm a business development manager here at CLO Europe. I'm based out of Munich, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our last session for the first ever academic month. Thank you for joining us today. Today marks the fourth, last session for our presentation. And we're going to have Albstadt Sigmaringen University joining us today. And I'm very happy to be able to introduce to you our speaker, Professor Dr. Christian Kaiser, who will be presenting to you how CLO was implemented in the university and how to really improve the usage of CLO throughout each semester and how it's really used in the industry later on in industry projects and so on. There will be also a 15-minute Q&A session at the end where you are able to ask anything you may want to know when it comes to CLO in the academic world. And please be aware that this session will be recorded. So in case you would like to switch off your camera during the session, please feel free to do so. And I'll ask you to also keep yourself muted again throughout the whole presentation so that we don't have any background noises here occurring. Professor Dr. Christian Kaiser teaches textile and clothing technology at the Albstadt Sigmaringen University in Germany. Having studied technical cybernetics, his research lies in digital process chains, simulation-based assessment of garment fit, and virtual sampling. With this expertise, he continues to develop this area of teaching and provides his students with the latest technologies such as CLO in Albstadt Sigmaringen University. It is my pleasure to introduce you to have you joining us today. We are very excited to hear more about your program and how CLO has been of use in your university. And you can start whenever you are ready.
Thank you. I am.
Great, let's jump in it.
So that's also my pleasure to welcome all of you. To me, it's a real honor to have the chance to speak about what we are doing at our university and how we introduced CLO 3D in our teaching. Perhaps some words to say in the front. I'm personally super convinced of the necessity and the importance of 3D. Reason for that might be, I'm actually not from textile industries basically, but I'm more a systems and control engineer. So I was really taught to work digitally as long as possible and then to link the digital and the physical world. And this is something where I also see the necessity in teaching. So regarding the journey we had so far with CLO at our university, you might see it's not a long one. We started in the winter semester 1920. So actually we are teaching in the second year CLO at our university. What you will see when it comes to the results, I would say you cannot see that we are only a 2-year starter. For me, it feels more like, it's something being part of our curriculum since years, and also to the students, it's like that. Perhaps regarding the timeline, I want to highlight some things. One game changer was the CLO academic workshop to me personally. The reason for that was not primarily the skills, I would say, in terms of skills. If you can teach one 3D tool, the other ones are pretty easy to learn, and especially CLO is a really easy to learn tool. But when it comes to tutorial database, so like example files and all that stuff, the academic workshop is a complete game changer, because what you will be provided with during this workshop, in my personal opinion, was for us the perfect start to train students with the key functionalities they need to know and to be expanded with more specific topics and focus areas that we want to go on. So if I want to highlight one part which is super important, I want to highlight the academic workshop. Then directly after this workshop, Corona came, which made the workshop even more important to us, because this was the basis for me to build up an own tutorial database. So I spoke in like hundreds of hours of playlists to several topics for my students, which are coupled in some kind of internal YouTube to the CAD database I was provided with during this workshop, and which was expanded by, let's say, some kind of own examples. And this enabled us to go in summer semester 20, so after 1.5 years, into a 3D project with the students where we were working completely digital. This idea was also led further in 2021 semester, where we made a further 3D project, also exclusively working on 3D. And during this time, me, my assistant researchers, be it students or real employees, work consistently in optimizing our tutorial database coming to CLO. So we have right now an English and a German database, but also when it comes to adjacent tools like, for example, digitalization of fabrics, be it Xtex, Photoshop, when it comes to hardware and trims, be it Blender or Fusion 360, so to link the framework even more. And now the circle closes for, let's say, it's 1.5 years. It's again the CLO Academic Workshop. I have to admit that this year it interferes for me a little bit with my lectures. Nevertheless, I try to be as long as possible in this workshop, because to me it's really important, first of all, to get know to the other, let's say, professors or teachers teaching CLO in their universities and schools and learn from them. Second of all, to me it's super important to be just in contact with the 3D community, to exchange ideas between the different institutions. So much as preliminary. If you still have the possibility to go for this workshop, do that. I can only recommend to do so. Regarding, let's say, the challenges, because we had challenges, there were, let's say, some basic questions that we had to ask ourselves at our university, being convinced that 3D is a must, not a nice to have. The question is, how do I embed 3D in the curriculum? There are, in my personal opinion, like some points that one could have a glance at. First of all, the question of digital sewing, like how do I digitally sew clothes or garments? Starting with simple projects like t-shirts, for example, easy starter, but we will come later on for the t-shirt because it's a perfect technology, let's say, carrier to learn some stuff. Second, virtual fit, because in the bachelor we are teaching an engineer, and engineers, they need to assess, they need to develop the products, and so the fitting aspect is a pretty important one. And then one adjacent issue, which is 3D design, because we are also having design classes at our engineering courses. So the question, how to introduce this in our lectures. This means that in some classes, that's what you see for the trousers, for example, we are starting more with some kind of basic stuff. Okay, the trouser doesn't look that easy, but believe me, after 1 or 2 months of working, it's like a no-brainer. And the students have to deal with where did I have issues? How did I improve these issues? How did I improve my pattern and stuff like that. Going to perhaps the next semester where they are dealing with a little bit more sophisticated products, including folds and all that stuff, where it also comes more to rendering, but also a more detailed assessment of fit, like where do I have inconsistencies? Why do I have these inconsistencies? Also the patterns they have to sew, some are prepared perfectly, some are prepared willingly false, in order to force them to find, let's say, some space of improvement. And this led to us to some, let's say, success factors. First of all, we, and me personally, consider 3D as one standard skill in teaching. As you can sew, as you can weld, as you can knit, simulating in 3D, working in 3D, assessing products in 3D is a standard skill in my personal opinion, being blended with the physical skills that we are teaching. This means we have so far 4 digital construction lectures, 3 of them related to 3D. Digital construction 1 is only pattern in CAD, so learning the basic skills, how to do patterns, learning the basic skills, how to make this in CAD. Starting in 2, we still have like 50% pattern skills, and 25% CAD, 25% basics in 3D, which is enhanced in digital construction 3, where we also have like the 25, 25, 50. This means we always link pattern design with CAD, with simulation. These products, they are also linked to the manufacturing in these semesters. So we are either manufacturing these products in our manufacturing lectures, or are manufacturing equivalent products. What does this help to our students? They are building up feedback loops, because in order to work perfectly in 3D, you have to understand the feedback loops between the physical and the real world. In the 4th semester, we go to the digital construction 4, which only focuses in 3D. So there it goes to rendering, there it goes to high-end publishing. We use 3D from the next semesters on, because we are hoping not only to work digitally in our lectures anymore, but also can go more and more again in the physical teaching to see 3D as some kind of standard skill in projects. So if we are manufacturing products, be it garments, but also be it non-garments that can be simulated in CLO, we will do the simulations in CLO. If it comes, for example, to design lectures or other ones, 3D is also some kind of, let's say, standard skill, because if you're doing 2D fabric design, for example, you can assess the visualization of your results directly in 3D. Currently, we think of some kind of white label simulation basis. I guess every one of you who ever dealt with 3D projects is familiar with this expression. For those who aren't, we make like white t-shirts being ready, or white pullovers or stuff like this, and the students that just drag and drop their 2D fabric designs on these products and can visualize and imagine the outcome of their work in 3D. I would say this teaches also the students to have different approaches when to use 3D for which applications, which is also super important in my personal opinion, and being frank, also in the opinion of my colleagues. A success factor I already talked about was and is the CLO academic workshop. I will attend the next one as well, as far as I also attended the last ones. So I can really recommend to you, if you want to introduce 3D at your university or school, attend this workshop, because it's super helpful for networking. And what also I have to admit, like Manuel, he is right now not available for the next weeks perhaps, but I got him to know during this academic workshop, and once I had a question, I asked him like, hey guy, I don't know how to do this, and like, I don't know, half a day later I got the answer, and this is super speeding up if you want to improve your work. So this is also super important. You get to know to the close stuff, and you know whom to ask if you have problems. This helps you super much, at least in the beginning of the teaching. Further success factor, I would say, is the question of the team. With Marina Baum, we have a creative part coming from the design world, embracing 3D. So she's doing the nice part, because I'm personally, I'm an engineer. I don't care for the optics, and this is also not my skill. My skill is to make the framework running, to teach how to use the tools, and she's the one teaching the students how to do this nicely, how to get good results. And so I would say having, first of all, more than one skilled teaching person is super helpful, and having several perspectives on the issue of 3D also helps super much. When it comes to teaching material, I have to admit, I am investing super much time, actually in every tool we are teaching, to make my own playlists, to make my own tutorial databases, build on some best practices I got from the software manufacturers, but also for some issues that I want to focus on personally. For example, we are right now dealing with a tutorial database for GLB export out of CLO. I guess this is something which is super early for you. For us, it's the next thing to go, because this is the 3D carrier format, which is, I would say, on an experimental stage, and that's the reason why we are already investing here in the future. finishing with this, I want to go a little bit more in how we are teaching the 3D. First, I would say this is our workhorses. We are going for simple products in the beginning, having a huge and fast success for the students. Like if you know how to do it, you are going to digitally see your t-shirts within less than 5 minutes. Once you understand this, you can go straight forward. If you are modifying patterns, be it in CLO or in a different CDA program, you can easily exchange patterns, and it's like a question of seconds in the feedback loop. Second, you can learn is the influence of the fabric or the 2D texture, be it prints, be it like real fabrics. These are simulations students of mine did in 2021. And this, in my perspective, is a pretty easy starter. Like I can do digital sewing, I can do like 3D design, I understand the drag and drop part. And right here, you see when it comes to the draping, it's all the same physics in the fabrics, but you could easily also exchange the physics. So you could also easily understand the influence of the fabrics for the draping as it is in reality as well. You can link this with, let's say, the more sophisticated part of using the right textures, because this has a huge influence on the plasticity of your products. In the first lectures, we do not deal with this. But when it comes further on, like Digital Construction 3, where you do your first rendering, you see the influence of the maps. In Digital Construction 4, you are building up your own maps and you're parameterizing them. And then you see the real influence, like the plasticity of your fabrics. It starts to live in this case, and it's not more like some kind of plastic simulation stuff where you think like, oh, okay, this is a simulation. So the evolving of the ingredients we are adding to the simulations, this is, I would say, something which is very important, like easy starter and enriching the simulations within the semesters with more and more information, also building up and more difficult projects, which leads me to the following slide, because there are challenges if you want to go further than just, I would say, the standard simulation approaches, because when it comes to hardware and trims, you have to work sometimes with more than one tool. If you want to make buckles, if you want to make carabines or your specific buttons and stuff like this, there are solutions to do so in CLO, but sometimes, or also often, there is the necessity to go for further tools, like, for example, Blender and Fusion 360. This can be for when it comes to hang tags, or as I said, buckles, where you make an OBJ file, you import it in CLO, and you use this for the simulation as a hardware and trim. I want to give a short an overview of what we did, for example, to make this face mask together with a carabine, which we then attached to a outfit, and we wanted to make an animation for this outfit. And there's one thing one has to understand in this context. CLO can, at the moment, as far as I'm informed, only animate one avatar. So you have to make some, I would say, tricks to do this in an elegant way. This means we made a first sketch. We did our first simulations, had to improve some stuff, which was so far, I would say, as you see, the number of days, like we are talking here of 11 days for starters. The students, they were in this context being able to simulate t-shirts in the beginning of this process. They were working within a project, not within a traditional lecture. This is something one has to admit. This means that they work like 20 hours per week within 3D. This is also the reason why I would say you can see this huge involvement after this short amount of time. But But this also leads me to the point that you need your standard lectures, but you also need your integration in the projects, because in the projects you have the time, in the projects you can do the interesting stuff, in the lectures you do the basics in order to be able to do the interesting stuff when it comes to, to the real issues. And what we did is we made this carabine as an avatar. We simulated the mask and all the other parts as a garment, and then we transformed this one to a trim, because this then is an OBJ file, and this OBJ file I can put as one part on my outfit, and trims I can use in my animations. So by this one, we were able to animate, I would say something, I wouldn't call it complex, but a little bit more non-standard within some kind of outfit, and also in terms of a little bit more sophisticated setting than just putting it on a picture. Because movement, I would say, is something which is pretty interesting, because when you come, for example, to publishing, the traditional approach is like, in the future we made pictures. Right now we are making pictures out of 3D as well. But I would say you can do way more dynamics. It's more like in the movies. If you think, for example, of Deadpool, where in the beginning you see like the camera flows through the entire scene, and you get different angles of all of that. CGI and 3D enables you to do the same. You can go do way more than just only pictures. You can do more interactivity. You can do more immersion when you sometimes go a little bit further than the traditional, I would say, photo settings. What I want to show after this is what you can achieve in projects when you have the time to do so, and you also have the ambition to push the students as hard as they can. What you see here is a backpack simulated exclusively in CLO. I have to admit that in some terms we couple CLO to some, let's say, external rendering software. Sometimes we render in CLO, sometimes we render outside of CLO. In Digital Construction 4, for example, we will benchmark both, like rendering in CLO, rendering in a, let's say, several software, support the students in understanding, like, when is it feasible to go outside of the framework, because you need super much time sometimes to prepare your data to get a little bit more quality. And the question is the payoff worth it? So if you're going, for example, for a web presence with 720p, why the heck you should go for 4K in rendering with hairiness and I don't know what, because you won't see it on the screen. And these are the things, for example, which are one thing to understand. The other one is to push the technology, how far you can go. And what I can tell you is that we learned that the mesh you're getting out of CLO works perfectly fine with renderers outside of CLO, and also the rendering results within CLO are super, I would say, sufficient for most of the cases. When you look more not only on the product but more on the setting, you see that we combined, for example, the backpack with a marmer plate. So it's not only visualizing the product, it's more getting also in the way of presenting the products. So you're building your own settings. These are things you can do in CLO as well. You can use HDRIs, you can add OBJ files. OBJ files are 3D files, for example, for street lamps. Mark, a student of mine, made some guy jumping over a parquet bench right beneath a street light. All of this in CLO. So you can do super much when it comes to high end and you're willing to invest the time. And what I personally would say is, if you're doing your job right and you see how to go in the details, you barely see if it's a simulation or not. Same holds, for example, for this bag. You see the texture is super important. One of the major mistakes my students are making is they are doing a pretty good simulation with particle distance 20, for example, where you see when it comes to folds that you are having a simulation because you see the triangulation, or when it comes to the textures because they just use the optics and not the physical maps, like the normal maps, the bump maps and all that stuff, the displacement, which makes the really 3D impression of the fabric, the leather and all that stuff later on. You can also use your 3D tools to do more than the traditional visualization. Because if you do traditional visualization, you can go just for most of the time entire garments. But if you are here more into the padding, the internal, let's say, details of your puffer jacket, in 3D, it's like super easy. You do like height in 3D and you can see the internals, and you can do this in a high-end visualization, like within minutes. So if you have the project to get a picture like this, if you've set everything perfectly up, it's 20 minutes, I would say, if you have a good workstation. And this is speeding up your process super fast. And I can tell you, if your students are realizing projects like this, they are super happy. I can't even tell you how much of motivation they are getting from successes like that one. Also, when you come to this one, like being frank, the student that made that simulation, they worked like 2 months on this. For a starter, I would say this is an awesome result because in every week you saw what she was improving and how she was improving, working on the details, working a little bit more on the texture. So this was her project, improving it. And I really would recommend you give them the time to do so, because sometimes you need the time to improve. It's the same like if you're going in professional sports, you have to train some steps super often. You have to make your mistakes, and it's not you to solve the mistakes for the students. It's you to teach them how to solve them, to tell them, okay, you need this map. Here, perhaps work with the elasticity in the seam. You're not telling them the values. You're not telling them the right parameters, but you're telling them this is the function you have to have a glance at. And then they're working with this like some hours, some days, depends on the speed of the student, and then they understand the function. They need to make their own mistakes, they need to make their own learnings, and then they can transfer it to other garments. These are also products of students of mine. I can tell you this taping was some kind of a real pain. I personally had also to learn much in this context, because when it comes to seams, I would say seams is pretty straightforward. I know it from other tools, I know it from CLO perfectly, and I first of all had to understand the taping solution. But once you understand it, it's also again pretty straightforward. It's like if you're riding a bicycle, or if you are able to walk. Once you can do it, you can apply it again and again. And perhaps you can see one further thing. I would say, for example, if you go to Mark's jacket or to the puffer jacket you saw before, students, they can do as good simulations that you can't even distinguish if they are pictures or CGI pictures. And these students, they were like in the 5th semesters, so they are way away from junior level when it comes to designers or industry. And this is something making me for some part proud, and making me also for some point believing in 3D to be the real game changer when these students enter industry, because they know how to do the stuff. For sure, they will have to go for higher output, because if you are at a garment company, you have to do not only 1 model or 2 models a week, you have to do like real high output, but you're getting better. And I would say using the learning curve, the skills you already have. My personal opinion is we will face visualizations like that within like the next half year or year, like, yeah, it's standard. This is something one can easily achieve. What you can also see here is like, you can really work with your surroundings in 3D. This one made in CLO, this one made in a different rendering tool. You see there is barely no difference. I personally can only tell you that it's in two different tools because I know which one is made in which one, but if you don't know, I would say there's no difference. Which also, I would say, perfectly shows you how powerful you can use this in your teaching. And being frank, if you have, for example, something like that prepared for your design classes, for example, if the students are working on more or less the same products each semester, and you're having here your HDRI and all that stuff, your lighting and all that stuff, and the students are going, for example, for the fabric design or the details, it will be super motivating because the output, it will be like high end, with comparably less work for the students, and motivations is so much important in this part. The last thing I wanted to show to you is something my student made last semester. The trailer or clip you are seeing was made after 15 weeks of work. These students, they had one lecture in CLO, so they were the first ones learning CLO. After that, they went to industry, because in our teaching, it's like between the last, I would say, lecture where you do the traditional skills and the industrial project, you're doing an internship. So these students, they worked before of that half of a year with CLO, and you can see the result they made after further half of a year, right now working in an industrial project. I guess that skilled eyes can see that there is space to improve, because, for example, if you go for the skateboarder, I would say the textures, they would be something I would change, because you see they used not all the maps they should go on. And also in some renderings, you see there's a little bit of graining, which is something being the result of our limited computation capacities at our university. But in general, I would say, if you see what not even young professionals can do after like 15 weeks, I would say this is some kind of amazing. And the details I am criticizing right here at the moment, I would say they are compared to what they achieved, like really, really minor things that are also really easy, or would be really easy to improve in the future. In my feedback I got from the students, they told me this was exactly the right project, also at the right time, because Corona time showed industry you need to go digital. And I would say like 40 to 50% of our students, they want to go that way. I also have to admit the other 40 to 50%, they want to go more in the physical way. They say, I need to touch the fabric, I need to smell it, to be in the production, which is also, I would say, some kind of valid decision. You know, not everyone is a techie guy, not everyone is a production guy, so this is perfectly fine. Also, when it comes to the future, let's say, realization, saying digital and physical, it's an XR, I would not agree as well, because you know, or you need to know when you go digital, and you need to go when to go physical, and you need to know how to link both of that. And so perhaps one message which is super important from my, or in my perspective, is do not do like you only have to go 3D. Do not do like 3D is something I would never ever look at, because real garment makers have to only work haptically with their hands. It's more like if you go to mechanical engineering, you have to be skilled in both worlds. And there are experts still more when it comes to the physical part. There are experts more when it comes to the digital part. There are the linking elements that are skilled in both. And I believe that it's our mission to train the young professionals, especially for that. It's the decision of the students where they say, okay, that's my focus area. But we need to supply them with the right teaching to get good in their focus areas. And I can tell you, my students, they, average half of them really loves 3D and also is pushing super hard to go in industry in 3D. And I can tell you as well, for them, it's super easy to get a job right at the moment. For me, it's harder to feed the jobs I'm getting from industry with my students than to get my students to work, because like every large garment enterprise right at the moment is hiring in 3D, be it 3D artists, be it more in the simulation part, be it more like in the IT part, like you have a solution architect or stuff like this. Because if you're getting solution architect from mechanical engineering, he doesn't understand the garment world. So you need lots of skills in this area. And I can tell you, if you do improve yourself in this part, in my perspective, your university will benefit from that. I can tell you ours did and will do as well in the future, I guess. This brings me nearly to the end of my presentation. So having so far achieved what we have, there's huge space for improvement. Why is it so? I would say 3D is a pretty young domain when it comes to our industry. So one really has to keep the pace with the technology, which evolves super fast. That's something perhaps which is important to know. If you are doing more like standard teaching, it's super easy because the standards, they work stable, like I would say 2015. When it comes to the more sophisticated stuff, CLO and all the other tools, they are super agile, like they are super fast new functions. You improve your workflows, you can do more, let's say, sophisticated simulations, and you also will need, in my perspective, tools around this. For example, be it Blender, be it Fusion 360, or be it Visio or Photoshop, to make the ingredients for your simulation. You can make patterns in CLO. This is also something where we are doing some tutorials right at the moment, like we are doing patterns in the, let's say, traditional CAD programs. We are doing the patterns in the CLO program. We are like interlinking the pattern world, like how can I make the CLO patterns producible? How can I make a production pattern capable of good way of simulation? And also when it comes to the rendering and publishing part, because it's not only always production, there are multiple tools that one can use in our ecosystem, but that's only our ecosystem. You could go for super many other tools. We use CLO for rendering and publishing. I can only recommend you also to have a glance at GLTF. I'm personally super convinced that this is one of the big things in the future. We also go for Blender because it is a super awesome freeware in my eyes. And with the new version, you have also a very, very powerful renderer within Blender. We go for KeyShot, which is a professional tool for rendering, where you can work a little bit more in the details. And we also go for Unity when it comes to HR and VR, having this one also linked to a, let's say, further cloud-based framework. So see the 3D simulation more as part in the future of a process chain, because you do not do 3D simulation just for, I have a 3D simulation and I have a picture. It's more like an asset. You have a 3D asset and you can do stuff with these things. You can use them in teaching for different aspects, but also when it comes to industry, you will have to use it in different aspects. And it's you to teach your students how to do so. So you need to understand when the process starts and then when the process ends. Yeah, so far, I would say I'm at the end.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. It was really, really good to see also from your perspective, from a also clothing technology perspective, where you teach engineers when using CLO as well. That was really great. For us, it was a little bit different to the other sessions, that's for sure. So yeah, thanks again for this really insightful presentation and for how you use CLO in projects and also used in your curriculum in just a small amount of time, because you actually have not joined the CLO community that long ago. So really great to see how you involved using CLO in your university. So now it's time for some questions, and we have already received a few of the questions. I'm gonna moderate this a little bit and walk you through the questions, but if you feel like you don't want to use the chat, you really want to ask directly, please raise your virtual hand and I will get to you and unmute you. So really feel free to make this an interactive Q&A session as well. So let me have a look into the chat. There is a question from Emma. So Mr. Kaiser, do you teach them to animate the animation part also between the two teachers, so you and your colleague, or in another course? So was this the final video put together by them, or a different department, as the animation is another skill to learn?
Actually, this was just within one project. In the lectures, they also learn how to make the animations, but in this context, it was just like one entire course, which is like, to better understand, they work like 3 days per week in this issue. Like they get a task each semester, and their task was to make a digital collection, also make digital presentation of that. And if you make, do you mean animation in terms of making the movie, or animation in terms of making the animation within the simulation? Perhaps to my better understanding.
I don't know, Emma. Animation, the movie is her answer.
The movie, okay. Being frank, we have the Adobe Creative Cloud tool set at our university, and luckily each semester there are like one or two hands of students that are super skilled in terms of making movies. So this is not a skill that we are teaching, but this is a skill that I would say our 3D students, they already have, because they just love this digital world. And so I would say our 3D expert students, they went in making this in this clip, but it's nothing that we are teaching in the bachelor. We are doing some stuff when it comes to that in the master.
Mm-hmm. Great. Another question that follows directly after this one is from Leanne. So she says, super interesting presentation, and would you be able to share the video? Because she thinks that it would be a great motivation for her students to show them what your students in Albstadt achieved.
Actually, they are on YouTube. If it's okay to you, I will forward the link to you, Natalie, and then you can provide it to the audience. Yes,
that's great. That's another thing we'd like to do later on, to also make sharing and possible. So that's a great idea. Another question is, do you have a course to achieve more realism in fabrics?
In the master, yes. in the bachelor, we are going a little bit more in the basics, like we have in the knitting area courses where we are really doing the 2D design, like with also specialized software. In the master, we are going more for the multiple choices, like be it leather, be it wovens, be it knitting and all that stuff. So we are trying to build up the skills.
Okay, great. Let's move a little bit forward because I think here another question would have been, maybe you can explain again, do all your students have pattern cutting knowledge before
Yes.
your specific course? Yeah.
Yes. Each student of us, perhaps this is also important to know, the students cannot choose if they are doing pattern, the students cannot choose if they are doing 3D. So there are skills we consider to be necessary or crucial, and we consider these skills to be crucial.
Have you also used CLO in draping class, or do you have any ideas of how CLO can be used to teach draping skills? Yes.
Good question. We did. Then Corona came. Then we did not anymore. We will again after Corona.
Yeah, makes sense.
I can tell you there were lots of learnings. Actually, I was some kind of mean because we used the Size Germany fitting models, the iSize mannequins for the real draping, and in CLO the mannequins are a little bit different also when it comes to posture. And the students, they had the task to align their simulation with the real fitting, and they were in the beginning like, oh, it's looking super differently. And they had to understand, like, if I have a mannequin standing like this and a mannequin standing like that, this makes a difference. If you go for the precise measurements, this makes a difference. And only after that, as they understood that they are different, they got the right mannequin to do so. So yes, if I have the chance to do so, we are doing this.
Great. Another great question is from Marion. How does CLO connect to weaving simulation software? Do you have to adapt the scale yourself by hand, or do you dimension match automatically? Do you have any experience in that?
I can only tell you that we are using Copperman, and with Copperman it's super easy. So the scaling is no issue. I cannot tell you for Penelope or equivalents or EIT softwares because I did not make the files on my own. I can tell you the software files I got, they just worked like drag and drop. So most of the time, no issue.
Yeah. I can confirm from CLO side, when it comes to Penelope, for example, we are not officially integrated, but it's workable. So yeah, just try out and it will work. And more general question is, where can you find the course information? Maybe you can also share that later with us.
You mean the course information? You mean the description of the modules, or what we are doing?
Yeah, I understand the question to be like that.
Okay, I will provide you with that.
Cool. Then also another question would be, how many semesters do CLO master study?
Actually, only on a voluntarily basis, because in the master we have we have more freedoms of choice, because when it comes to the master, we differentiate a little bit more when it comes to like closed frameworks, when it comes to open frameworks, both of them having their advantages and disadvantages. And our masters, they specialize either in the one world or in the other one. But our master is running 2 semesters, and I can tell you that each semester every time has at least 4 SVS. So for SVS, it's like 3 hours per week, 3D at least.
Okay, great. I think since you mentioned KeyShot as another rendering machine, there would be a question of, can you make animations in KeyShot?
Yes, you can. The Alembic transfer is a little bit of a pain. We go over Mixamo right at the moment because this helps us for the interfacing. But when it comes to animations, I have to admit things sometimes get dirty. So it's not that straightforward as you go for like a poster. This is also something which will never, in my perspective, be part of the teaching in the close side, because there you need completely or really deeper skills when it comes to 3D and also preparation of the 3D data. But this is super awesome when it comes to projects and when it comes to bachelor or master thesis, because there the students, they learn the really hard stuff.
Okay, that's really great in general also to see how you embed really CLO in a 3D ecosystem. I think this is also what we're recommending to the industry, and already seeing that you do that. It's really good to see also. Then there would be a lot of thank yous for this great presentation and information. Maybe if anyone has a last question, is there anything raising? Otherwise, I would then be closing the session for today, as we received a lot of very insightful information. Yes, and someone already pressed the share button. Thank you, Patricia, because that would be my next topic, that if you like to share your contact details with all the participants of today's session, and able to really make sharing possible within the academic world, we would suggest for you to type into the chat just simply share. Then we're going to share the contact information after the session. And finally, I also would like to thank all of you for participating today, and especially thank you, Mr. Kaiser, for sharing all that wonderful information and how you integrated CLO in such a short amount into your curriculum, and also using it for this wonderful industrial project, which I find really inspiring as well, and very valuable, as we learned also for the students to work within the project using CLO. Yes, so we're just going to stay a little bit more online for everyone to have the chance to press the share button.
Your help also in this context, because I work for the first time with Zoom. Where do I push the share button?
Oh, we're gonna include you for sure in the
okay.
sharing in
okay.
the sharing list, because you presented today. But yes, in the chat there is multiple sharing suggestions, so that's really great, and also already an email that is shared directly. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. That's really great to see that you like to be connected with each other. Amazing. So it's really warm here in Germany, and really wonderful weather today. Let's hope for the best that it's after our today's work day, that we're gonna have the ability to stay out in the sun a little bit. Oh, there's another question. Yes, the question would be how to get access to the last session from last week. So we asked our presenters if we can record, and we recorded some of the sessions, and we're looking forward to making some of the sessions available on our YouTube channel as well. So you could also have a look on some of the presentations afterwards again. All right. I think we received a lot, still receiving information here. Perfect. Great, great, great. All right. Good. Then I think everyone had the chance to really share their email addresses or press the share button. So again, Mr. Kaiser, thank you so much for being a presenter of our very first academic month. It was the last session, and we really had a lot of fun to organize that. And yeah, I guess we're gonna stay in touch. And everyone who wants to, I just want to promote also one last time, as Mr. Kaiser already did, he promoted our workshop. So there is going to be another basic course next week, starting from Monday till Wednesday. So if you would like to be trained by one of our 3D designers on a basic course, please sign up for it, because after the course next week, there is going to be a long time, not another course, because we're gonna actually do an advanced workshop in autumn for all our academic clients as well. So take the basic course next week, and then maybe you can also join our advanced course in autumn, planned in autumn this year. Yes, you do. You will need the software for next week. So please feel free to reach out to us again if you don't have academic licenses already. We need to talk about that as well. Okay, great. So thanks so much again, and take care, and see you around. Bye-bye.
Bye.